Hello everybody, I am Curtis and welcome to my channel where we take ordinary photos and try to make them extraordinary. Today we're looking at a red-capped mushroom that I found in my yard. Now I actually found this probably a year ago and I photographed it and didn't do much with it. I actually shot a little video showing how I shot it. But one thing about mushrooms are a fleeting subject. In other words, they only last for a certain amount of time before they disappear or change completely. They even change by the hour, much less by the day. If you wait a day, if you see a mushroom, I'm going to photograph that the next day, guess what? It's going to disappear or it's going to change completely from what you see. Remember, photography, we're capturing a moment in time. So if you see a mushroom and it looks great, grab your camera and photograph it, no matter the conditions. And if you need to massage it and post like I'm going to do today, then so be it. Now, with this mushroom, I'm going to play this short video. It'll explain how I shot it. I shot it with a Nikon Z7 and a macro lens. I tried two lenses. One was a wide-angle macro, and the other was a telephoto or a longer focal length macro, and the video will explain that. Okay, so I'm photographing this mushroom, and it's really hard I'm down here on the ground. Seems like I don't have a wide enough angle lens on my camera, but in my camera bag I have several lenses, or two lenses, the 15mm and the 100mm. I have the 15mm and the 200mm, or 15mm and the 100. This is the 100, this is the 15. I'm going to show you both shots taken with it. I do have a cable release, but I'm going to shoot it in natural light. I shot it in natural light, and I also shot it in using flashlights. So this is an Olight M10. I don't think they make this anymore. It's got a Harold Ross diffuser on the end of it for light painting, light sculpting, and this has moss in it, but this is just another LED light that I use for illumination. So when I actually took the photograph, the 100mm lens was a little bit, I couldn't get the angle right, so I had to support the back end of it. And so I actually used this flashlight to do it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of give you, see if I can actually do it. So the mushroom is just off camera here. And I'm going to use my flip up screen. Very hard I tried to focus stack it, but focus stacking wasn't really working all that well. I had to support the back end of it, of the actual camera, because I needed to point the camera this way so I could actually get the mushroom. So the only thing I had with me at the time was my flashlight, this flashlight. So I lifted up the end. I'm going to bring it back a little bit further. And that way I could elevate it, and then the front end was resting on the ground. I was shooting at around 11 f/16. Anything bigger than that, you start to lose sharpness. f8 is really kind of the sweet spot between f8 and f11 on this lens of the 100mm 2.8 Leoa macro lens. And then I use this light to illuminate it. So this is a Olight. Again, I can change the power on it. What I wound up doing is taking off the modifier and just using it without the modifier. So let's go ahead and take a look at the photographs and see what I got. Okay, so that was the video with my iPhone. Sorry for the quality. Wasn't the best, but it is what it is, right? So let's take a look at the photographs that I actually captured with my Nikon Z7. All right, so here we are, and we're in Capture One. Now, I use Capture One primarily because I tether. I tether a lot. As you can see, these were some of the images shot with the wide-angle lens, and you can see the depth of field is good, but there's a lot of distracting background. So your eye is automatically drawn to the brightest part of the frame. as well as if you look at when I zoom in, it's out of focus. The stock is in focus, but the cap is out of focus. I might be able to fix that, but I'm not quite sure. It looks a little bit oversaturated too. I'm not quite sure. I haven't changed anything. These are raw files. Again, the cap is totally out of focus here. So, maybe a little bit better. I'm not quite sure what was going on, but I switched to the semi-telephoto lens. As you can see, I'm shooting at 400th of an ISO, and now the cap is totally sharp, but the stock is out of focus because I didn't focus stack. I really couldn't focus stack these shots the way the camera was lying on the ground without actually drastically moving the photograph. And that's one of the things that I'm going to be overlapping photographs because I'm going to shoot a couple different elements and I need them to match up. So then we get down to some of these photographs, and actually these are pretty good shots. You can see the cap here, and then I actually shot the stock here. So I went through and I selected a couple photographs that I liked, and now we're going to go to Photoshop to take a look. Okay, so here we are in Photoshop, and I have my two images. This is the cap that I selected, and then this is the actual stock I selected. Now, as we recall, my stock is out of focus, or a little bit out of focus because I didn't focus stack them. So let's try and see if I can sharpen this. And I'm going to actually use a software called Topaz Labs Sharpen AI, and I'm going to pull it up, and it's going to pull this into the labs. Okay, so there it is. As you can see, it's done a lot with that stock. Okay, so it's done actually a pretty good job. There it is. So it's better than it was. You can see the before on the left, the original, and then on the right, and it's really done a good job. It's even actually sharpened up the cap, but I'm not going to worry about the cap so much. We're just interested in the stock. So I'm going to hit apply. And if you're wondering what camera or computer I'm using a Mac Studio M1, so the original Mac Studio. And so there we are. And so we have this nice, and it looks pretty darn good for being in focus. And then I'll combine it with this shot of the cap. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I am going to select this entire image. Okay. And then I'm going to copy it. Actually, I'm going to go to edit, copy, and I'm going to go into here. I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to hit edit and paste. Okay, so I've placed them over each other. Okay, so I've got them here. I've got this one here, and then I've got this one. Oops, this one, as you can see. But I have to auto align them. So now you have to select both layers. You go into edit, and then you go into auto align layers. And then I'm just going to leave it in auto, just as a standard thing, and then it should have automatically aligned to the two layers. So you really shouldn't see a difference between the two. It looks good. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and edit this. Now, you can see that the top layer has hidden the bottom layer. That's okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this top layer, which is the stock, and then I'm going to hit my option on a Mac, and I'm going to hit mask, and that fills it in with black. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring that back, that light back. I'm going to paint it back in with my pen. I'm going to select my brush here. My brush is way too big, so I'm going to have to adjust my brush. And you can do this on the keyboard with your brackets. But I'm just going to slide it down here. That's a little too thin. So I'm going to bring that up. There. And so you can actually brush this in like this. And so you want to select a white. So I want to paint white on my mask. And then also I'm going to make the hardness 0. I want this to be the softest brush possible. Okay. I don't want any hard lines. and I can just draw down. Okay, so now that is way too much. So I'm going to hit edit, and I'm going to undo brush. But what I'm going to do is instead, I'm going to change my opacity down to 10%. And then I'm just going to brush this down like this. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to slowly increase my brush size like this. And so what I'm doing by doing this is I'm giving it shape. Okay. So, like that. So, this is before, and that's after. That's before, and then after. So it's giving it shape. Remember that this is a round stalk, okay? So we can do that. Now, the second way we can do this, I'm going to take my brush. I'm going to fill this back in with black. I'm going to take this up to 100% here. And I'm going to fill the, yeah, I'm going to fill this in like it was before. Okay. So my mask is black. You know, you can actually just get a big brush and fill that in. Okay. Another way you can do it is you can actually create a gradient. So I want to pick my gradient tool over here on the left-hand side, and then I want to pick a center-weighted gradient here, and then I can create a gradient like this. All right. And I can move that around. I can tilt it like this. I can make it smaller. I can feather it more, like that. So this is a really easy way to do it, too. And it may be easier if you don't have a brush. You could just do this with a mouse, okay? Okay, but once that's done, you can see that it's affecting the cone or the cap of the mushroom. So what I do is I want to get my brush again. I want to select black, and I'm just going to fill in this, okay? Just like that. So then we have our nice stalk, but what about the cap? Okay, so here we have the stem, but let's say I want to do something with the cap. Maybe I want to adjust the cap a little bit. So I'm going to duplicate this bottom layer, and then I'm going to take this, and then I am going to mask it. And then the bottom layer, I'm going to do an adjustment layer. So I'm going to go up to here, I'm going to go to exposure, and I'm going to reduce the exposure just a little bit here. Okay. So there's that. And then I'm going to go back to my layer 2 mask, and I'm going to do something with a brush here. I'm going to get my brush. I'm going to paint in white over here. So I'm going to paint in the max, and then it's going to reveal that. So I'm going to just, and you can see it's 100%. I don't want 100%. So again, I want to adjust the opacity to 10%. Okay. And just have a subtle difference. And then I'm just going to paint this just like this a few times. And then I'm going to increase my brush size, because remember, the edges of the brush, it's strongest in the center of the brush, but since I have this at a hardness of 0, it's going to be softer at the edges. So hopefully what I'm trying to do is create a smooth transition between the two, right? So, and then I just keep on increasing this just like that. And then I have this nice gradient, so a highlight. Okay. But I want to see if this mask here above is affecting it, so I'm going to paint this black. Go this back up to 100%, just like that. And then you can see the difference here when I turn this layer on and off. Before, after, okay? Now, if this image is too dark, I can always go back here and I can adjust this exposure. And I'm going to bring it up a little bit. just like that. Now it lightens everything up, but that's okay. I still have a subtle difference. And if you want to, I mean, you can go in here and you can dodge and burn it if you want. See, that lightens, but if we want to burn it, this will darken it. I'm not a huge fan of burning just because I think it looks kind of funky sometimes, but that's okay. So before, after. So it just lightens it up just a little bit. It gives us that feeling of shape, just like our stalk has a feeling of shape. Okay? So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these in a group here. And I'm going to name this group cap and stem, just so I know what they are. And then here, maybe I want to highlight this area here. So I'm going to add a layer here, and then I'm going to select my elliptical tool, and I'm going to create an area here. All right. And I can move that around. Maybe I want to make it bigger. I don't know. You can do this just about anytime you want, because I'll show you here in a second. We can transform it. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to create an exposure layer for this, just like that. And then I'm going to brighten this up a little bit, but you can see how much it is. So I'm going to go here, and then I'm going to go to select, and then I'm going to modify this because I want it to be feathered quite a bit. So I'm going to go up here, and I'm going to select. I'm going to modify this, and then I'm going to feather. And then I'm going to feather this, I don't know, a couple hundred pixels, maybe 300 pixels, not 3,000. Okay, to make it nice and soft. And then I'm going to go to this layer, and then I'm going to put an exposure adjustment on it. And then I am going to increase the exposure, just like that. Okay. And the reason is it gives me the impression of light passing the mushroom and then hitting the ground. Okay. And so we can adjust that as we want, up and down. Maybe it's too bright. We don't want to draw attention to it so much, but it's a little patch of light there. Okay. And then we can do another layer, because I think that to balance it out, we need some light in the upper right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw another mask just like I did down below. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm just going to draw it, and then I'm going to select it. I'm going to modify this. I'm going to feather it. I'm going to feather it again by 300 pixels. And then I am going to add an adjustment layer to it, exposure. And then I'm going to increase the exposure. You can see that. But then I can actually move this around. So I'm going to unlock this, and then I'm going to move this mask. So you can see I can move it around. So I'm just going to move it up here into the upper right-hand corner. Here. And then I can transform it. Control T. I can make this bigger or smaller, whatever I want to do. Again, I can move this around. Maybe that's too bright. So then I can reduce the opacity on that and do this. So it's just a touch of light. Okay, so one final touch we might want to try, and that would be to make maybe some light rays. So how do we do that? Well, we create a new layer, and you can actually buy brushes for light rays, but I'm going to show you kind of a way to do it where you don't have to buy it. Keep in mind, your mileage may vary. So I want to go to the polygon lasso tool, and basically I want to select an area that kind of simulates maybe light rays. So I'm going to start outside the frame. I'm going to come down here and maybe do something like that. something like this. Just kind of go up here, maybe up, down, something like that. And then I'll come up here and then close the lasso. So there's my selection. Now I want to feather this because I don't want it to be too, sharp. We don't want edges, right? So we're going to select, we're going to go to modify, we're going to go to feather. And then I'm going to pick about 75 pixels, which is good. Okay. And then I'm going to fill this. Now I'm going to fill this with a color. Maybe some golden brown, kind of like the light of sun, yellowish, somewhere around in there, just like that. I'm going to select OK. I'm going to select my brush tool, and I'm going to fill this in. Just and make sure you go all the way around because it's feathered, remember. So the edges are feathered. We want to make sure it's filled. Now it looks kind of janky right there. So I'm going to deselect this, and then I'm going to go over to my opacity, and I'm going to reduce the opacity. I'm going to way down so it's transparent. Okay, so it's just like that. And then what I can do is I can go in here and I can transform the layer, right? So I can make it bigger, wider, and I'm going to actually go in and make it squinchier. Maybe it's too wide. So I'm just going to mess with this. Nothing's right. It's just, what you like looking at, what you think is good, what you think is bad. All right. So maybe the light's coming through the trees and it's causing maybe a little bit of light rays coming through. That's kind of what we're doing. I'm going to hit OK. All right. It's going to think about that. Then I'm going to transform it again because I don't think it's quite in the right position. I'm going to go like here, and I'm going to rotate this, and so it's coming straight down. I'm not liking the shape here too much. I kind of messed around with that, so I'm going to add a layer mask to it. I'm going to do that. I'm going to paint with black. It's a white layer mask, so basically I'm painting in black to hide it. So then I'm going to actually do this here. And actually I need to move it because it looks like it's, I'm not going to move the mask. Make sure I'm selecting the actual image here. And I'm going to move this up. Oop. Move this up out of the way. There. Okay. So now I got a little bit of light rays coming in here. You can keep that if you want or not. You can just make it barely imperceptible. And so there it is. So, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and save it. And I'm going to leave it uncompressed. I'm editing in TIFF, by the way, not JPEG. So you never want to edit in JPEG. Hit OK. Yes, I know that. And so it's saved. You may want to save this as you do it. All right. So you can see it's a large file. So it's 1.02 gigs because I'm shooting the file. Actually, this file is actually in 16-bit. You don't have to edit in 16-bit, of course. My computer doesn't have a problem with it. But if you go down to image mode, you can go down to 8-bit if you want. I just went ahead and did it in 16-bit. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to file, save a copy. And I'm going to make this my print mushroom TIFF. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and close this out. And then I'm going to go into Capture One. And here is our print mushroom save. And there's our original 32. So at this point, I can actually export it from Photoshop or from Capture One. And if I wanted to, I could export it. I'm going to say I'm going to go to export it as a JPEG. And then it's going to automatically put it into the file. I'm going to export the one image. And then it should be there. So I know that was a little bit long, and I apologize. It's been a while, and my desktop, if you guys can see this, I'm using an XP pen face, and I have to wedge the keyboard between my XP pen and the actual monitor. So it's a good thing I hadn't gone on my diet yet, because then I wouldn't be able to hold the keyboard. But I need to get some sort of keyboard stand. You really need your keyboard when working with this stuff. But I appreciate your attention, and I appreciate your time. I know it's valuable. So hopefully you'll see that we took an ordinary shot of a mushroom and just made it that much better, maybe into something extraordinary, maybe something that you want to actually print and hang on to the wall. So until next time, we'll see you.